we are calling for her resignation or termination.
We're doing an equity summit next week to really get the conversation going about how we can build back better.
Anna, after they said penetration in the end zone, they lost me. So, Sonny, is this a sign that this...
Somebody ran over the line to the water pump. Anyhow, but we are getting gasoline, which is great, and maybe we can pee on the side of the road.
President Biden has called it at one point a relic of Jim Crow, but we're also going to really enter into this post-1/6 world where we really have to ask ourselves whether or not democracy will be protected.
If you wanted to think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons. No one needs to have a weapon that can fire over 30, 40, 50, even up to 100 rounds, unless you think the deer are wearing Kevlar vests or something. Police Chief Murray of the Baltimore, Police Chief Murphy, Paul of Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Alice, when it comes to cogent presidents, we are not bringing our best, I would say. That was Joe Biden just a few minutes ago talking about his new gun control initiative. They are going to crack down on gun violence in these here United States. As you heard yesterday on the show from Jen Psaki, gun violence is actually the only kind of violence left in this country, the only kind of crime left in this country. Rapes no longer occur, apparently, and thefts no longer occur, although the people of Connecticut could be fooled by that because they're on the receiving end of these thefts. So, by the way,
carjackings definitely are not on the rise.
No. And Biden's senior advisor, Cedric Richmond, of course, he's echoing the sentiments. He took a little bit further.
Mr. Richmond, what do you think is the root of the cause of this spike in violence? I mean, we read through some of these cities don't know. From the administration's perspective, why is this happening?
Well, look, a bunch of reasons, I believe, but one is the proliferation of guns on the streets of America. The fact that we have let the NRA govern this country for far too long, and the president is willing to take them on directly. We need to make.
Isn't the NRA like in bankruptcy proceedings right now, and is a mess and isn't doing anything?
And I think we had all the guns in the streets 2 years ago as well, but there wasn't this spike in violence.
Well, people did buy more guns during the pandemic, but I don't think that's what's going on.
And there were like 184 shootings in the last week. How many of those were legally bought guns during the pandemic?
Yeah, I don't think.
No. This is the fact that they're willing to even put this out there shows you the disdain they have for the American voter. It is remarkable. It also could be that they see the midterms as being just a blowout, or maybe that's the play. Maybe the play is you say this stuff about the NRA. In legal guns, and you cross your fingers and hope guns hit the headlines again. In a way, Alice, that gets yoga pant wine moms very upset.
Well, right, because the type of gun control that usually we hear about, like the assault weapons bans and stuff, that's not going to impact inner city crime, which is what we're seeing spike over the last year.
Right.
That's almost entirely handguns. You know, like when Maura Healey cracked down on so-called assault weapons in Massachusetts, when she changed the definition of an assault weapon by herself, there had been in the previous year 0 murders with a so-called assault weapon. It was all handguns.
Right.
And, and the type of crime that we're seeing right now, again, this is none of these measures that he's proposing. I mean, first of all, almost all guns in the United States are purchased with background checks anyway, unless you're just buying from your friend. Everybody who's a gun dealer has to do a background check for every single gun sale. So the background check issue is like a non-thing. Everybody passes a background check when they buy a gun. It's ridiculous to suggest otherwise. And the states that, for example, don't have, licenses to have guns anyway, like Vermont, that's not where the gun crime is happening, is not in Vermont. Right. So the idea that any of these measures have anything to do with the type of crime that's occurring in the major cities is absolutely just bogus start to finish. Nothing that they're proposing does anything about the problems that they're supposedly saying they're going to solve. I mean, it's like the most cynical thing. At least you can sort of draw a line, like when a mass shooting happens with an AR-15 to an assault weapons ban. You know, like, I disagree with it still, but at least there's sort of like some kind of logical thought progression there that I can like understand what the thought process was that gets us from point A to point B. But saying like, oh, a bunch of people were shot in Chicago with handguns, so we need an assault weapons ban. That's just like living in Fantasyland. That has nothing to do with anything.
You're right. And
I mean, were any of these people shot with, huge magazines? Or were they just shot with handguns with normal magazines because that's like what people are shooting each other with in Chicago?
Right. No, well, which is why, Alice, you make the case for white supremacy being the most threatening element out there right now. And then you make the case that all the white Trump voters are white supremacists, and they have all the AR-15s. And it's a great grift if you can pull it off.
But it kind of seems like there actually is a real problem with a crime spike happening across the country in a variety of different cities. And it would be great to have some kind of cohesive response to that problem.
Yeah, you'd figure like that might be something that we could get bipartisan support for.
Since people are dying from that crime spike at this moment in time.
It is not even a blink of pause goes by when a 14-year-old kid gets shot and killed. A 5-year-old kid, a 2-year-old kid in these cities. It's
unless a cop did it. In which case
it's the biggest thing in the world. And we need to do all sorts of, and then we have to get rid of the police who protect these neighborhoods. It's so horrifically
cynical.
Cynical. But I was talking at my brother today too, and it's just it's completely emotional symbolism. And I've gotten him since my brother stayed here with us at the house here for about a week, for a few days. So we went down to Connecticut, but so I've gotten him now hooked on the French Revolution. And even towards the end, even as the sans-culottes are killing the culottes, and Robespierre's days are numbered. Even as they're getting that close, when they ratchet up the terrors and ratchet it up, it was, even though the Republic was falling apart, was being invaded, and on several fronts, the people had no money. The economy had gone had cratered. The institutions were burned to nothing. They got rid of the calendars, and renamed them, etc. Everything.
Yeah, they renamed all the months.
They killed everybody who knew anything. And guillotined them and just murdered. They couldn't. Anybody who was a suspect was murdered. Anybody who was a friend in the periphery of that suspect was murdered. They just, even towards the end.
Somehow, if we kill a few more people, we'll solve the problem.
You're right.
They kept thinking.
Right. They looked at, even though they could see the balance sheet and they could see that mathematically everything was wrong, the drive in the spirit of what was happening, because it was the Enlightenment, was so right that that eclipsed anything else. The pursuit of autonomy, of individual freedom, etc., even though that caused you to have to kill everybody, the pursuit was so noble that they were doing that any of the other stuff was just unfortunate fallout of it.
Right.
And so they finished the Enlightenment thinking, well, this was great. I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. And there was for a great big chunk of it, some of the Americans who had been in the Revolution, notable Americans, Jefferson looked at it and said, don't see the problem. It'll sort itself out.
He and Adams used to write to each other, and they disagreed about it because Adams thought it had gone too far and was a disgrace, and Jefferson, thought that It was gonna be fine. It would balance out.
Right.
In the
It'll
end.
sort itself out. It's going to get a little ugly here. First, we'll drown everybody in this town, and then that should be about the final ember of the obstruction of us into complete and total freedom and anti-absolutism and all that stuff. And we're right there. And that's what this stuff, with this gun control stuff, it's all the pursuit of it. Big, evil, mean, maniacal, monolithic NRA. Bad. Yes, the fight, the pursuit of them is so noble that it doesn't matter that shouldn't be the target. That's not where the problem is. The pursuit is so noble. And sure, I mean, going down and rousting young people in marginalized neighborhoods to try to get their guns from them, etc., and using a stop and frisk or whatever it is, that doesn't feel noble. You're rousting people with no means. You know, these are the poor. These are the people that the evil rich
if you want multiple Breonna Taylors per day, then cracking down on gun control is a great way to get there, if that's your goal.
Right.
Because that's
on legal guns, you mean?
Right. That's what it's going to be every day, is cops trying to bang down doors to go get guns from people and exchange fire, and innocent people are going to get shot. And that's what's going to happen. Who weren't criminals the day before you made the guns illegal.
Well, wait, who says they're innocent? Were the people at Ruby Ridge innocent?
Yeah.
Were the people at the place in Texas, Waco, Texas?
Waco.
The Davidians who died, were they innocent?
Well, the kids were.
Some of the adults were too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that's not what we were told in 1994.
Well,
no. You know, there was we were told that all those people were the same as Timothy McVeigh. It's the same thing. Holdouts and you know, it matters. So,
and that's who all the people.
If they kick in the door here for looking for Al Shattuck's gun, and you make a sudden move and they shoot you dead,
I'm the bad guy.
Right, you're the bad guy.
Right. Just like all the people who went to D.C. on January 6th are also evil, racist, white supremacist terrorists, even if they didn't even go anywhere near the Capitol and they just listened to the Trump speech and went home.
Exactly.
They're all the same thing, because if you glom them all together, they're all insurrectionists who are trying to overthrow our democracy and are dangerous. And, you know, they were doing a coup, and that's the end of it.
Right, and this is why,
and more, it's looking like, by the way, that January 6th, that some of the major instigators were FBI agents.
Yeah, I'm hearing more.
So, and I always say this, I've said this on this show before, like, in any given right-wing, like, far right-wing movement, like the Oath Keepers or the Proud Boys or any of it, like, assume that half the people are FBI informants, because it's probably a safe bet. Like that guy Enrique Tarrio, who we were told was terrible in the Proud Boys, he's an FBI informant too, who was informing on the rest of them. So just be a little suspicious. Anybody who seems a little too gung ho for the taking violent action against the evil people taking over our country, just bear in mind they might be like trying to get you involved in something on purpose because they're actually involved with the FBI. Just a thought.
Absolutely. Wait, so Enrique, is that the guy who took all the footage?
No, that's that like Antifa guy.
Oh, the leader of the Proud Boys.
The leader of the Proud Boys,
Okay.
Enrique Tarrio, he was actually, I think he didn't even go to January 6th. They weren't even there, but yeah, he was an FBI informant way before that. These movements are all full of that. So just assume that anybody who's like really excited to, go.
And this is why
do something, quote unquote. Just don't follow them, because they're probably not on your team, actually.
And back to the cynical side of this, the way Biden positions some of the opposition to his gun control efforts is either cynical, insulting, it's either distorted on purpose, or he's too stupid to know the difference. But probably it's distorted on purpose to change the argument. Because I've heard people on the left say the same exact thing to me constantly Sometimes Biden just tries to make a joke as well, but this one's a little bit of both.
Background checks for purchasing a firearm are important. Ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. No one needs to have a weapon that can fire over 30, 40, 50, even up to 100 rounds. Unless you think the deer are wearing Kevlar vests or something.
Again, that's not what the issue is here.
Right.
The people shooting each other in Chicago are not carrying 100-round magazines. That's not what we're talking about.
And Second Amendment people don't have their guns to shoot deer primarily.
Yeah, no, that's not what the founders were thinking when they wrote the Second Amendment. They were thinking that we'd be shooting at the government. Exactly.
And if you're just learning this now, then holy God.
The Second Amendment, from the day it was passed, limited the type of people who could own a gun and what type of weapon you could own. You couldn't buy a cannon. Those who say the blood of patriots, and all the stuff about how we're going to have to move against the government.
It's a great history class, isn't it?
Could you really not own a cannon, actually?
I don't know.
I don't know that it's true that you
I don't know if
couldn't
it told
own a
you
cannon.
who couldn't own a gun either. I'm not sure. Maybe women and slaves, I guess. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, the tree of liberty is not water with the blood of patriots. What's happened is that there are never been, if you wanted to think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. As we've learned in places like Vietnam and Afghanistan and everywhere else.
And the American Revolution.
Yeah, that it's called guerrilla warfare. I don't know if we've heard of this, but that people with guns can be incredibly effective against organized armies.
All you have to do is be able to stick around.
Yeah.
So when Parliament keeps meeting and says, why did we spend another $800,000 in something called a Kentucky? Eventually they say, yeah, okay, we're out of here. Thanks a lot. I don't know why my kid died in Brockton, Massachusetts, but I don't know if it was worth it. Precisely. You're right. Insurgencies and guerrilla warfare is, you just need to be able to stick around. That's it. And if you're native to the land, you can hang and you can drag the columns of a uniformed military, to come after you, then in many ways they have the advantage. Unless, of course, you round up and shoot everybody. But in a country where the inception of the country came as a result of farmers turning to soldiers, then turning back to farmers, then turning into soldiers, then turning back to farmers, especially in the very beginning, it is not so easy.
That's the whole idea of this, is that you arm the general populace so that you never end up with tyranny.
Right.
Because you can never end up with, for example, what you have in China, where the government controls every single person's every move all the time.
Exactly.
You can't end up with that here because you lose more lives trying to enforce your stupid stuff than you could ever get to make it work. Like, it just wouldn't be worth it at the end of the day.
Right.
The same with enforcing our lockdowns. There's a reason why nobody was welded into any apartment buildings here. And they were able to do that in China.
Were we not? Some places would have accepted it. That's how you win. That's how you did.
Some places were going like, weld us, please, weld us. But,
But yes, this is a country. The model of this country was a government that is subordinate to the people.
Right.
And that is by design, and that is why we can have stuff without the government being able to tell us or pat us in the head. Or that was the goal anyway. More and more, you wonder how many people really want that.
Yeah, the Loudoun County School Board meeting yesterday had me wondering who works for who.
They gotta just fire that thing up for prime time and put it on TV.
I know, I'm ready to watch it every day.
It is incredible. I love to see it. God, I love it. Okay, so that's Biden. What else does he have?
So he's going to do background checks, which we already do.
Yep.
He's going to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, which are not the issue at all.
Police Chief Murray of the Police Chief Murphy, Paul of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, talked about how he's coordinating more.
Baltimore. What happened to Baltimore?
Tobacco and firearms.
Jeez, my goodness. Do you know how the Baton Rouge got its emails?
Yes, I do actually.
Really?
Wait, were you around when I was talking to the kids about this? That's how you know.
Go ahead.
It's called the red stick because when the explorers explored the area, there was a red stick, really it was just a stick, but it was stained with the blood of the animals that the different warring tribes sacrificed there to denote where their property line was.
Let's name the town after this bloody stick. What a time to be alive.
So, so that's good. They were like, oh, here's the Red Stick place. And then they were like, well, just call this place Red Stick.
French. Mm-hmm. When was this?
This
before my revolution or not?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, Alice. Let us see. Okay. I just want to do a little follow-up here on the woman, Robley, the teacher in New Haven.
Formerly a principal in New Haven.
Yes, formerly a principal. I'm sorry about that. And they busted her down and sent her to the central office. But the clergy, Jacobins, Alice, they not only want her whacked, but they want everybody involved to apologize.
We are calling for her resignation or termination. I believe right now she is not fit to work at any of our schools with our children, or she should be in central office, still be able to control and actually set the climate for our children.
So she can't even be a pencil pusher now.
No. Even though she's not getting paid for summers anymore.
And everybody who voted merely to demote her must apologize.
Yes. Exactly. There's no crazy mobs or anything happening. It's wonderful they do this in New Haven where there's just another pair of shootings.
Mm-hmm. Somebody died in Hartford too, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It's always Hartford and New Haven. Okay. Where should I start here? Okay. Well, you know what? A little comic relief. No, actually, let's go. Since we were just talking about the founding of the country, we'll go to Yamiche Alcindor, who is very angry since last night. The Senate killed they made it illegal for blacks and women to vote. The Republicans in the Senate, I believe. That's what I'm gleaning from this. But they shot down the Democrats' stupid nationalize all the elections.
So future Orlando Bloom and Katy Perry are very disappointed in us.
Exactly. Exactly. We lost. Everybody's been disenfranchised now. And Yamiche, this is who works for public television, who gets paid by you and I, Alice. We pay her salary. She was on TV today to sum up what the result of the Republicans killing the voting bill was.
We're going to enter into that debate, and we're also going to enter into what is American democracy and who should have access to it. This is fundamental.
That's what the Senate voted on?
Yes, that's actually the exact wording of the bill. What is American democracy and who should have access to it?
And I assume because it was Republicans.
Yes, only white men.
Oh,
so sorry about that.
And property owners probably too.
Exactly, and there's a literacy test involved as well. So there you go. This is a paid reporter. She is not an analyst. She is not an opinion person. She reports this stuff that she says is in her head. She's also going to write it down. It's going to be spoken on TV as journalism.
Mentally going to be a debate cast in talking to activists and talking to White House officials. This is going to be a debate about whether or not we want America to be the place that the founders, flawed as they may have been, the founders wanted it to be, which is a place where people could vote and people could have access to who were the elected officials.
So wait, the Senate voted on whether or not we'd be a place where people can vote?
Mm-hmm. Guess how they voted.
They wanted us to be a place where people don't vote.
They can't vote. Yeah. Voting is over.
Wait, but doesn't the bill make the change, and not passing the bill leaves things as they are now currently?
It's not what the founders wanted.
So how can not changing the status quo take away your right to vote? That's what I want to know. Wait, if you had the right to vote before,
yes,
then how can not changing the laws take away your right to vote?
Is there a chance that all of the voting laws had been quietly repealed and this is a bill to restore them?
I missed that newsflash.
I think if anything in areas that voting had been expanded because of the coronavirus and maybe might be contracted back to its original form.
I mean, as far as I know, people are like still voting in the New York mayoral race, which was yesterday, and they're still gathering ballots and doing stuff and counting things. So we're not going to know for like 4 weeks.
You must not have a gig on public television.
When I talk to activists and civil rights leaders, they tell me that not only, of course, are they going to continue to put pressure on lawmakers to put in bills and to try to push back on this filibuster issue and to try to get the For the People Act passed. I've been talking to officials who say two other things really need to happen. The first is that the DOJ needs to start taking action to try to figure out whether or not there are ways to stop these state legislatures and these states from trying to take away voting access from Americans. The second thing they tell me...
First of all, she's not talking to anybody. That's one. This is a lying idiot right here. I recognize this half-assery. I've done it in my own life. And also, she is... She's suggesting that the key to this is have the DOJ intercede locally, supersede local attorneys general,
right,
and make decisions for the states.
I think that's very... Do they ever think ahead? Because this is what I want to know. Like, they're all for having the DOJ step in and like tell states what they can do with their elections. Do they stop and think like what happens? For example, I don't think this will happen, but what if Trump gets reelected in 2024 and there's now the precedent that the DOJ gets to step in and tell local attorneys general how to run their elections? I mean, do they ever stop and think about that?
I think that Trump may have been criticized for badgering state officials in Georgia
on how to run their elections.
Exactly. Correct?
So that's what I mean, like, do they think, like, maybe after the whole thing where Obama did the pen and the phone thing and, like... And then, Trump did executive orders and they were mad and said he was a dictator. Like, do they ever stop and think,
like, the Harry Reid rule?
We could now, again, have Republicans in charge again someday.
Yes.
Like, and the thing with the filibuster, too, this is what I don't get. Like, and they'll tell you, like, well, Mitch McConnell will get rid of the filibuster in a second if he could. Well, he could have for the whole first half of the Trump presidency, and he didn't. So what does that tell you? Well, he could have if it would have well, of course. Trump would have loved. Trump was pressuring McConnell to get rid of the filibuster because he would have been able to pass all these extra things, and McConnell didn't do it. Why didn't he do it? Because Mitch McConnell happens to believe in precedent and the way the Senate works. He might not be into a lot,
right?
But that's his thing, is how the Senate runs.
But he does believe in an eye for an eye. So what's good for the goose, he believes in. So when Harry Reid tried to do Obama a solid by changing the judicial nominee rules, to was it a simple majority? Is that right? Simple majority to help his buddy. Well, then in came Trump, and McConnell was happy to
do the same thing.
Exactly.
So, do they ever stop and think, like, what happens if in 2022, as is definitely possible, Mitch McConnell, by chance, picks up one seat in the Senate? Like, do they ever stop and think about that as they're talking about getting rid of the filibuster and having the DOJ run everybody's elections? Because they're going to run everything forever, and it's just about what they want right now.
But there's no reckoning if you're a liberal, if you're a Democrat. There's no reckoning. You'll just claim it's totally new. This is absolutely new, the first time anything has happened like this ever before. With the Trump in cages. Oh my God, this is totally, absolutely new, the first time ever. Then they go away.
Meanwhile, all the news stories are showing pictures of kids in cages under Obama.
Right.
They want to see now President Biden accelerate nominating judges because they see that as the first line of defense against a lot of these laws. So we're entering a phase now that, of course, is going to be about this procedural rule. President Biden has called it at one point a relic of Jim Crow. But we're also going to really enter into this post-1/6 world where we really have to ask ourselves whether or not democracy will be protected.
She should actually file a complaint. Really. Yamiche should file a complaint in that station. The fact that they think so little of her, that they have such a low opinion of her intellect, that they sit there and let her say that idiocy. I'm serious. To say that idiocy without ever correcting her, what she said is on a nuclear level absurdity. It is.
Of course it is.
You can't. Now, if you're who's the guy for the Harvard, the black guy with the crazy long beard who was in the Keanu Reeves Matrix? Cornell. If you're Cornell West and you say what she just said, you say, oh, well, that's fine. It's Cornell West. She is a paid journalist with a press pass. That is smack talk. What she just said is no different than what Alex Jones says.
Right.
At all. Except people challenge Alex Jones.
Right. When Trump claims he won the election, people call it the big lie and act like he's crazy and Jake Tapper won't have him on the show. Right.
Right.
Like, but when the left says that Hillary Clinton actually won the election, or that Stacey Abrams won her election, or whatever, or that, 1-6 was an attack on our democracy, or whatever crazy thing, like, they just get invited back and everything's fine. That's just a totally legitimate other opinion to have, that this happened.
By the way, don't you love how they've made 1-6 a thing? Mm-hmm. 9/11, 1-6, it's the same. It was
except like the deaths of 3,000 people. Except that's.
What do you mean? A cop was murdered on 1-6, Alice.
Yeah, he had a stroke 24 hours later. That's very
with a fire hydrant thing.
Yep, no, that did not happen.
Okay, so the guy in charge of gun grabbing is doing a tour of Texas and stopping at gas stations. This is what the former teen heartthrob Beto O'Rourke is up to.
We're at the gas station filling up, and no way. We just learned we're at a gas station and there's no water, and we have not had a chance to use the bathroom since we left San Angelo 3 or 4 hours ago, and I guess somebody ran over the line to the water pump. Anyhow, but we are getting gasoline, which is great, and maybe we can pee on the side of the road.
Are we sure all content is good content? Are we sure?
I mean, didn't he live stream his dental appointment a couple of years ago? So.
Right. Before he did his Kerouac trip the last time around. I will say one thing. That is the best gas station soundtrack I've ever heard. That is Life in a Northern Town, I believe, Alice. Who sings that? You know?
I do not know.
Life in a Northern... It's a really beautiful song. I want to look it up. Phil.
Okay. Well, yeah, as always, I don't really...
Dream Academy, Alice.
Dream Academy.
Okay. Okay, so that from Beto to Behar. This is Joy Behar welcoming the newest openly gay NFL Las Vegas Raider.
Las Vegas.
Okay.
The Las Vegas Raiders. Anna, after they said penetration in the end zone, they lost me. So, Sonny, is this a sign that this...
There you go. Super tolerant left. My goodness. It's funny. Isn't that great?
They're such nice people.
You get it? Penetration.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Thank you.
It's a great joke. I mean, from a former comedian, that is well said. And should just, like we talked about, little dudes in stores, little wiry dudes who love to attack women and get in their faces.
Mm-hmm.
It's just below the surface, how they really feel about people.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Jeez. All right. That's who you want to be. That's who you want to be. So Miguel Cardona, the Secretary of Education, was in, I don't know if you know, did you see this? Did you get me this? Or
yes, I sent you this.
Okay. So he talked to the Channel 3's Kara Sundlun. This is a Connecticut thing.
He's from Connecticut.
He's from Connecticut. So he's a favorite son or hometown boy, whatever it is. So I watched all 5 minutes of it, and I noticed this is about education. Remember, your kids have been cloistered away. This is about education. How are we going to get the kids caught up from last year, emotionally and professionally, educationally? What are we going to do to try to, expand opportunities for kids? Yada yada yada. But peppered throughout this interview was very familiar language, and it made me think of how we're handling the border and how we're handling crime.
it's not good enough to go back to how it was before March 2020. There were gaps in access and opportunities and outcomes before then.
Whoa. Gaps in opportunities in what?
Access?
Outcomes.
Sorry.
Yes.
But wait. Can I say something? Because I hear this rhetoric a lot from our friends on the left and the teachers' unions that it's not good enough to go back to how things were in March of 2020 because that was already like not an acceptable level. Could we start by going back to that? Like, because we haven't even hit that level again yet. So why don't we start by trying to get back to zero, and then we can talk about where to go from there? I mean, like, for example, I think school choice would be like a good move to make in that direction. But if we're talking about opportunities for everybody, but whatever. I mean, I know they're not going to agree with me on that, but how about we try to at least get back to how good things were last year? It's not good enough to go
back to that, Alice.
Okay, but I mean, like, right now it's still worse than that. So could we talk about trying to get back to that first before we get...
But also, weren't they the ones who brought us to the place we were before March?
No, mean Republicans were cutting education funding
across
the country.
Forgot that. Who was that mean woman?
Betsy DeVos.
Betsy DeVos, that's right. She cut it down to $11 per year. The
Everybody's education funding was just getting smaller and smaller year after year.
Imagine President DeSantis.
That's a lie, by the way. Education funding goes up all the time.
Imagine President DeSantis cuts the Department of Education. It's not a constitutionally required department, is it?
No, it is not.
Imagine that, and just give the money to the states. Say, hey, figure it out.
Give the money to the parents.
As educators across the country to build back better and make sure that the programs that we have in our schools provide opportunities for all students to succeed.
In other words, equity. In other words, like we've been saying, it's the spirit of the fight that matters. It is not the outcome that matters. Yeah. It doesn't matter. The balance sheet does not matter. It's that we did the right thing.
I want all students to have the opportunity to be seen, to be heard.
Maybe we should start by having them allowed to go to school.
That's how you know, when you hear language like that, I want an opportunity to be seen. That's how you know you're dealing with a psycho who has got the whiff of Marxism all over him. Psycho.
We're doing an equity summit next week to really get the conversation going about how we can build back better. We have some amazing thinkers and educators from across the country that are going to be discussing best ways to think about equity at the center of reopening schools.
So let me tell you something. If you're a parent and you're expecting the Department of Education to be help, you just heard it. This is just another soldier.
They're having a summit. In the meantime, I believe it's the Charlotte-Mecklenburg School District. They just had a summit, a leadership summit. It was a virtual leadership summit. They were on Zoom, but they paid Ibram X. Kendi $25,000 to appear on their Zoom meeting to tell them about equity. So that tells you how they're spending your money and what their priorities are and what our friend here is going to be doing, Cardona is going to be doing at his summit and everything else. They're going to be paying a bunch of race
$25,000 for this.
You talked about the importance of defining racism, but I unless I missed it, which is possible, I didn't hear your personal definition. Is there one that you would offer us? Like, how do you define racism?
Sure. So racism, I would define it as a collection of racist policies that lead to racial inequity, that are substantial.
Right now, he's up to $11,000 already with his answer.
Created by racist ideas.
Oh well, that was in person though. That's probably $50,000.
So racism is made up of racist stuff. And
racist policies and racist ideas.
This dumb grifter can't even come up with another level for his grift of explanation.
Sure, a collection of racist policies that lead to racial inequity, that are substantiated by racist ideas.
No, it wasn't that we couldn't understand you the first time. It's that it made no frigging sense. Holy hell, I can't believe that people take you seriously. That's what we mean.
And anti-racism
is that in reverse. Well, here's your $25,000. Thank you. But once again, it's not about the balance sheet. It's not about the balance sheet. It's not about the fact that what he says makes no freaking sense at all and is complete horse bleep and is flim-flammery. It's the fact that you had him come and talk to you. This is remarkable. Listen, this is Channel 3's Kara Sundlun. By the way, at the end of this thing with Cardona, where he uses his progressive flim flam. So this is a news anchor who you'd think I would have said. Wait a second, you just said equity there. That's interesting. And you said outcomes. What are you talking about exactly? And what are we doing? Are you trying to flatten outcomes down or lift? I just want to know what does it look like tangibly that you're going to do. This is how she ends the interview.
We need to reimagine what summer school looks like.
Okay, you heard it from the Secretary of Education. It's okay to go play. Thank you, Secretary, for being with us, and we look forward to seeing some good changes in the fall.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
we can go play. Thank you. Oh, my God.
Yeah, and that actually, he's hitting on another theme there when she asked him if it was okay to play or if the kids need to go to summer school, and he said that other things could be educational besides just, sitting in a classroom. This is like a line that I've heard from like teachers unions and other lefties and stuff about education when we're saying none of the kids are going to school right now. Like, what is it that we pay you guys for? And they're like, well, spending time at home with your family can be educational too in different ways. Like, and then it's like, but great. So then why do you make $300,000 a year again to be the superintendent of our school district? Just remind me, because if staying home with me is just as educational, then maybe we don't need you, actually. Just a thought.
Well, I don't think you can ensure that we're doing equity.
Yeah, no.
We haven't had an equity summit in this house in quite some time.
I'm not sure you would like it if we had an equity summit in the house, honey.
What is that supposed to mean, young lady? Miss Thing?
I don't know. I'm just not sure if there's equity in our house currently.
What do you mean this is my 5th hour, okay?
Oh, okay.
Stupid head?
Okay, stupid head. So, in other news, this is kind of crazy. John McAfee of antivirus software fame, of, being on the run, libertarian presidential candidate. Possibly murderer, said that sleeping with whales was consensual, all kinds of stuff. He's
married to a former prostitute, I believe, made an honest woman of her.
So he, a little under 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago, let us know that he'd been getting hints from people in U.S. government that that he might be killing himself in the near future, a la Jeffrey Epstein. And he, today, in Spanish jail, killed himself before he was extradited to the United States on fraud charges.
Oh, my goodness.
So, yeah, he made sure to let us know that if he committed suicide, he did not. He was killed, and he committed suicide. So,
I was always shocked at how thin he kept himself. Considering if you get that much money, aren't you going to eat like constantly and do stuff? Or at least maybe that's just me.
Maybe that is just you. Or maybe you didn't realize that weight is purely a matter of chance and you can't do anything about it at all. It's impossible to lose weight, actually.
That's correct. That's correct. And that's where the equity division comes, because you have thin privilege. So when you go around here and say that there's a lack of equity in this house, that's you speaking from a place of privilege, which means you have to do some hard work, put the work in, and it could take years.
It could, indeed.
It's like your kind of attitude that gets my people killed. All right, Alice, what do we got? Anything else? Are we out? We out?
I think we're out for the day.
Should I play the music?
That's all I have, pretty much, unless you want to cover the Loudoun County School Board meeting. But, I mean, we talked about that a little.
No, they're rising up. Stay tuned. They're rising up. The parents have had enough of it. Only one of them got brutally arrested.
Two got arrested.
Okay.
Two got arrested because the meeting was apparently public comment was too rowdy, quote
Somebody
unquote.
spoke out of order, and then another place, somebody was demanding that the Pledge of Allegiance be said, and somebody else was... It is happening. It is cool to watch. I love it. And let's...
Tea Party 2.0, baby. Let's go.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here with us, everybody. We are the Burn Barrel Podcast. We're at burnbarrelpodcast.com. You can also find us on social media at Burn Barrel Pod on Twitter or facebook.com/burnbarrelpodcast. If email's more your thing, you can email us at burnbarrelpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find us on YouTube. That's Tom Shattuck's Burn Barrel on YouTube. So wherever you listen, leave us a review, leave a comment, like the videos or whatever it is that you like to do. We enjoy speaking to you every day.
Can you tie this off, Alice? I feel like you're walking to the end of a jetty here with no answer.
I have a lot of things to say. Thank you. Everybody's the best. Our listeners are the best people, and I love them.